Pardon board is reconvened. We're at Louisiana State Penitentiary. Today is Monday, May 8th, 2023. It's 11:51 a.m. Would the staff at the state prison please introduce yourself for the record?
Deputy Warden Rochelle Ambo.
Reginald Admiral, classification.
Carmen Shipley, Offender Records.
Everybody? Okay, thank you. And we have before us our first case, Mr. Johnson. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Johnson, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number, please, sir.
My name Vincent Johnson, DOC 106229.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson. My name is Cheryl Renanza. Let me introduce my colleagues to you. Seated to my far left is Mrs. Bonnie Jackson. My immediate left, Mr. Alvin Roche, and this is Mr. Pete Freeman seated to my right. I want to acknowledge you have some guests there with you today. You have, well, I see two.
Yes, sir.
Would you introduce, I have Latrice Williams.
And my grandson.
Tyrone James.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and were you expecting your brother?
No,
Jack? Okay.
my brother.
I have a Jack Lyles.
He on the list.
Jack Lyles. Right, he here, but he wasn't coming in.
Okay, all right. And then here with us in Baton Rouge, we have Courtney Hart, Jew Retton. Kristen DeLabreton, and then joining us also from the DA's office, we have Ms. Tracy Barbera, all of whom will be speaking in opposition at the appropriate time. Mr. Johnson, let me just read some identifying information into the record, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche. Your case has been assigned to him. Mr. Johnson, you're here seeking the commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in East Baton Rouge Parish, the 19th JDC, in April 1984 for conviction, 3 counts of aggravated rape. You received a life sentence on each of those counts, and those sentences are running consecutively. Mr. Johnson, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Mr. Roche.
That's correct.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, fellow board members, before us this morning, we have Vincent L. Johnson, DOC number 106229. Mr. Johnson is here today seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for 3 counts of aggravated rape in East Baton Rouge Parish, which he was sentenced to life on each count of the aggravated rape to run consecutively to each other without benefit of probation, parole, or suspension and sentence. Total sentence, 3 life sentences. On January 27th, 1984, he was found guilty by a jury of 12 of his peers unanimously on the 3 counts of aggravated rape. Mr. Johnson is currently 70 years old. He was 30 years of age at the time of these egregious offenses. The applicant has been incarcerated for the last 40 years. Is all that information correct, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, were you employed at the time of your arrest?
Yes, sir.
What was your occupation?
I was a pest control technician.
working for Arkin Pest Control, am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For two of the victims in your conviction, customers of your company,
Yes, sir.
did you service their homes?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that Miss Margaret Matthews' husband had just recently been deceased?
Yes, sir.
And were you aware that Miss Dila Berton was in the process of getting a divorce?
I wasn't aware of that, sir. No, sir.
Okay. You weren't aware that there was a divorce in progress.
Say again.
You were not aware that there was a divorce in the process.
I knew she was living by herself with the babysitter.
So basically, I think the first service, she was a very nice lady, so you had a conversation. Am I
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And you went back to each one of these homes and violated a lady that was going through a traumatic experience.
Yes, sir.
So tell me and tell this panel this afternoon, what kind of mindset a man would have to invade the privacy and violate a female customer at one of her worst moments?
Sir, I could say that there was a cowardly act. I was on drinking at the time, and I could actually say I wasn't in my right mind, in the right mind frame.
But you were the right man, you were drunk, but you were, in the case of Mrs. Jill LeBerton, you had enough coordination to climb through a window of the child's bedroom. When the child was awoken, you told the 4-year-old to go back to sleep.
Yes, sir.
Couldn't have been that drunk.
Yes, sir. Well, not really, really drunk, but I was drinking. I wasn't to the point that I was completely intoxicated. I realized that there was a cowardly act that I carried out, and I'm very sorry for that.
Okay, now you said it was a cowardly act. When did you realize that it was a cowardly act?
Actually, it wasn't long after that I came to that conclusion. And plus, after going through programs up here, I realized that I had made a bad mistake. And only cowards and people with no kind of upbringing or do something like that.
Mr. Johnson, you violently raped Mrs. Matthews in January.
Yes, sir.
And then 2 or 3 months later, you went back to the same home and did the same thing?
Yes, sir.
You couldn't realize that you were a coward until you got finished.
Well, at the time, I wasn't thinking, sir.
Okay. So there's some indication that between January and May of 1983, you committed more rapes than the 3 that you were convicted of.
No, the 3 that I was convicted of, those the ones I committed. Yes, sir.
And there was no other rape.
No, sir.
Okay. Opposition in this case comes from the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney's Office. Assistant DA, Ms. Tracy Barbera, has submitted a very strong response in opposition to any clemency or any reduction in Mr. Johnson's statement. She's here present today and will make a statement at the appropriate time. Also, the Baton Rouge Police Department is strongly opposed. Victim opposition comes from Robert Dale Matthews, the son of Marjorie Matthews, who is now deceased. And he is in vehement opposition to any clemency or reduction in sentence. Marjorie Matthews is victim number 1, who you had raped on 2 occasions. Opposition also comes from Ms. Jill Boyton, victim number 2, who outlined in her vehement letter of opposition the effects that this crime still has on her today. She's still emotionally, physically, and mentally affected by the crime that you committed. She does not allow anyone in her house without proper supervision. Opposition also comes from Kristen Liberton, daughter of victim 2, the 4-year-old who you told to go back to bed when you climbed through her bedroom window. She says the events of that night affected her entire life. Mr. Johnson has a low risk assessment. He has a good institutional record. He's in medium custody. He has a high school diploma. His current job is a groundskeeper. Tell us exactly what you do and how long have you had that job?
Worked at the education building as a groundkeeper for the last 16 years.
Okay. Tell us exactly what you do.
I worked the fence line and I cut the yard, plus plant flowers and things around the MPO.
Okay. Tell us about your vocational skills.
My vocational skills, I have within the last few years, I went to Malachi Dad. I got Thinking for a Change. I got
Those are programs. I'm talking about your carpentry skill and your pesticide applicator certification.
Yes, sir. I got pesticide. I went to 2 stages in the pesticide and the carpentry. I finished both of those job skills.
And I see you participate in the Vietnam Veterans of America organization. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. We just had a meeting about that. I was in the service during that time period. And I'm an active participant in the program here.
So I see you're a veteran of the U.S. Army. You served
Yes, sir.
75, and you were in the reserves until 78.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service. Programs completed, anger management, thank you for a change, 12-step program, Malachi Dads, 100 hours pre-release, adult healthcare course, and you completed all 4 phases of your sex offender treatment.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, tell us what all the phases of sex offender did in understanding who you are and how you affected the victims.
The 4 stages of the sex offender program help you in many ways. It helps you in your thinking process, and it helps you to not to reoffend again.
Tell us how it helped you to understand what the victims are going through.
Yes, sir. Like I had said before, there was a cowlack, and I apologize for the shameful way in which I disrespected the victim. I apologize, and I'm deeply sorry for that.
If you could speak to the victims, tell us exactly what you would tell the victims today.
Today, I would tell them that I'm deeply sorry. There was a cowardly act that I committed, and I'm very sorry. I regret what I did. I apologize to them, and from this day forward, I would honor them by never disrespecting another individual.
How can a man premeditatedly, deliberately commit an act of the acts that you committed?
Had to be dealing with my mental state, drinking, and by drinking and doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing, that's what contributed to that. I had no respect for nothing. But now,
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about drugs and alcohol. When did you start abusing alcohol?
I started abusing alcohol when I was in the service. And once I got out, I just continued.
So we're talking about 1974.
Yes, sir. I got out in 1975.
So we're talking 25 and 23, that was 48 years ago, so you were about 22 years old.
Yes, sir.
And when did you start abusing illegal drugs?
Well, the illegal drugs part, I didn't, my thing was drinking, heavy drinking.
So you've never done marijuana?
No, sir.
No type of illegal drugs?
I did a little hash once, but I didn't like that. So I stayed with the drinking.
Okay, but you have used illegal drugs.
Yes, sir.
So what's your ongoing sobriety plan? Now, I've gone over your record. I don't see any substance abuse treatment or education at all. I see anger management. I see thinking for a change. I see the 12-step program. Okay, that's abuse. But what I'm saying is, I don't see living in balance. I don't see Louisiana risk management. I don't see celebrate recovery. Why haven't you taken a substance abuse treatment program?
I took the 12-step program. I took that. That's dealing with drinking and drugs and stuff.
I know exactly what it does, but why haven't you enrolled in Living in Balance, Celebrate Recovery, or Louisiana Risk Management?
Yes, sir, I got risk management.
No, that's the sex offender treatment. There's another course called Louisiana Risk Management that deals with substance abuse.
Substance abuse? Yes, sir. I have the 12 step.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I see your transition plan is with your daughter, Ms. Latrice Williams, in Faraday, Louisiana, and you're gonna be working at a washateria. Tell us about your transition plan.
My residential plan,
Residential and employment plan.
the employment plan, my granddaughter owned her own washateria. So they said they'll provide me with a job. And my daughter, she have her own home and she'll let me stay there with her.
In my packet, there were 8 or 9 letters of support from family, friends, and your former classmates. I just wanted to put that into the record. Your disciplinary conduct, you have 14 or 15 write-ups in 40 years, not bad. The last one was in April 2012, 11 years ago. You remember what that write-up was for?
Yes, sir. I received a pair of gloves from a security officer. I was working in the cell block, and that's to handle the boxes, those 10 boxes and things. And that was a violation.
Okay. Warden Ambo, do you have any comments, concerns, remarks, or observations?
So his last report was malingering. It was not what he said about gloves. He made a medical emergency for something that was not considered a medical emergency.
Okay.
And also, looking through his past, looking through the record through the past intakes and orders that he had taken, he didn't indicate that he had any substance abuse issues.
Okay.
That's why he probably wasn't in any substance abuse classes. AA is voluntary, so he probably volunteered to go to AA for substance abuse.
So he wasn't completely truthful on intake.
True.
Madam Chairman, this concludes my presentation and interview. I have a recommendation, and I will share with my fellow board members at the conclusion of this interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redfern. I just have one question, well, a couple of questions, Mr. Johnson. You, today, you readily acknowledged your guilt in committing these 3 rapes. Yes, when Mr. Roche asked you, you just readily admitted it. So as I reviewed your record, though, I see several letters from family members of yours that were dated, they're not dated 2021, and they say that they're convinced you did not commit these crimes. How do you explain that?
Well, I had told them at first, I straight out lied to them that I didn't do it. But later, I told them that I apologized to them. I told them that I was the one that perpetrated those crimes.
Right. Well, the letters, as I mentioned, are dated 2021. So it was just 2 years ago that you made that acknowledgement to your family?
No, I had made it to them way before then.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to hear from your family who are there with you. Could we hear from Miss Latrice Williams?
Okay.
Do I have to sit right there? Or
You can talk right there.
okay. What is it? Good morning. How y'all doing?
I thank you all for letting me speaking on behalf of my father. And I beg you all to grant him clemency. He have told me over and over how sorry he was for committing the disgrace act. He is very remorseful, and I apologize to the victim because I am a mother and I would hate for something like that to happen to me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Jerron, can we hear from you?
Good morning. My name is Jaron James. I am Vincent Johnson grandson. I'm here on his behalf. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak on my grandfather's behalf. Each time I talk to my grandfather, he tells me how remorseful he is for committing the crime against Mrs. Matthew and Mrs. Della Barton. And he always tells me not to disrespect anyone. I believe my grandfather. I beg and pray that you all grant him clemency today. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your remarks. Appreciate it. Now we'll hear from the opposition who are here with us. Could we first hear from Ms. Jill Rain? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
He said it.
But we need to, if you
I'll
will,
have
step
her
to
there.
the podium, please, so we can get you on the film.
She doesn't.
We won't turn the camera on, but he'll hear her.
First of all, I was stunned when I found out this was even gonna happen again. And then, over the weekend, I started thinking, because I was angry. Now I'm just incredibly disappointed in the whole system. That somebody can be a serial rapist with a weapon and can still have the audacity to ask to go free. This is something that you never get old. No matter how long it is. Yeah, it's been 40 years for me too. But I still have it right here and right here. And there has been no successful rehabilitation program for rapists, including a chemical castration. So there's no guarantee that he's gonna come out and behave himself. It doesn't happen. I want to live in fear of him getting out. I want to be able to live like I've been living. To not live in, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to be afraid to put garbage out when the sun's dead. It's not fair. It's not fair. Like I said, you think you're over it, and then something rears its ugly head, and it's all back again. And I resent the legislature letting these people do this over and over and over again. Because then I've got to go through it over and over and over again. Because I'll be damned if I'm going to be quiet. All I have to do is look at another woman to make sure that he doesn't get out to do that to somebody else. That's all.
Thank you so much. Kristen?
Mine is easy. My name is Kristen. I am the 4-year-old. I did see in the hallway. This man told me to go back to bed. Gus Jackson. I don't know if you recognize me. I'm a criminal investigator. That is the role that this has taken in my life for a reason. To put people like him where he is. Because he did something that This is where you earn to be. Consecutive, not concurrent. Consecutive. Get that out. And participated in certain victims dialogue program. Not because he said that he did, but because in my head, I had him as a 7 foot. You can ask my mother, ask my father, you can ask St. Joseph's Academy. I used to have nightmares waiting for him or his family to be just sitting on the street, take me out. Because I am the 4-year-old that said, you were in my house. You told me to go back to bed. And I, again and again. I understand the process a little bit more than my mom. I understand that everyone has rights. Where are the rights for the victims? This is the first time ever in 40 years, Mr. Johnson and panel, that he has ever said he did anything wrong. This whole cowardly act, what cowardly act? Why don't you say what you did? These letters that I've been hearing about that are dated 2021, there's a reason. Because he's never admitted it. We had a parole hearing, I'm gonna give or take 5 years ago, I'm not really sure. He didn't admit it then either. I testified at that one, and my first thing was, first thing of parole is to admit what you've done. He didn't do it. Now all of a sudden, he's asking for clemency, and I'm sure he knows, he's been in jail for 40 years, that you need to say what you've done in order to at least be considered. I'm not buying it. This whole I was drunk, whatever. No, you came to my house, our house, where my dad had just left my mother. My sister was 16 months old. I was at Mother's Day out at Jefferson Baptist. You sprayed the house. You left my sister's window unlocked. And then you came back. How long were you intoxicated? I don't understand. And the same thing goes for Miss Matthews. How dare you? Not only violate this woman once, twice. I can't even fathom this. And I will testify at every hearing until his sentence is finished. Wish I could live 3 life sentences. I cannot. He is where he belongs. I don't accept his apology at all. I think it's rubbish. And it's cowardly act. Say what you did. And then his education, he went and got something about pesticide. So you mean to tell me that he went to school to go be another organ man, to go spray people's houses? You've got to be kidding.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
The only thing I'm grateful for is that he didn't kill the 3 of us. That's it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I think we're a pretty hard-headed, strong person. But I don't know if I'll have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then we have Ms. Courtney Hart.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, Ms. Barbera, could we hear from the DA's office, please?
Thank you, Chairman Renata. I believe it was 2016 that I was present before a couple of current members of the board with Jill and Kristen, and I believe Mr. Matthews was present last time as well. I, of course, reiterate everything that these two ladies have already said to you, and I would just ask that we not forget that this man committed not one, not two, but 3 acts of rape, home invasions. It was, these acts were purposeful, they were planned, premeditated, they were predatory in nature, and his sentences were to run consecutive. The law is the law, and he does have the right to have this hearing. I would just ask that the members of the board look at the 40 years he has served, and there needs to be a degree of accountability in these cases. And I would submit to you that 13 years and 4 months per rape is not a sufficient degree of accountability. I recall him denying these offenses back in 2016. I think his recent, quote, acceptance and acknowledgement and expressions of remorse are nothing but convenient on his part, because as Kristen said, if he doesn't acknowledge what he did, there's no way you're going to vote or recommend to the governor that his sentences, his 3 life sentences, be commuted. This man raped a woman who I believe was in her late 20s and a woman who was in her early 60s. That is very disturbing to me. I believe in his prior clemency application, he made reference to one of these offenses occurring the night he was celebrating his 10th wedding anniversary. There's something wrong with the man, the way this man is wired, and I consider him to be a continued threat to the community, and I do not believe he has served nearly enough time to have full accountability for his crimes. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate the input from the district attorney's office. All right, Mr. Johnson, this is your opportunity. If you'd like to make a statement, you can do so now.
Thank you. I want to begin by saying that I can say I'm sorry, and I can say I'm sorry, but I want you to know that I deeply apologize and I deeply regret what I did to those victims. I beg for their forgiveness, and I beg for this board forgiveness. Like I had said, it was a cowardly act, and I apologize for my stupidity. I will always honor those victims by never disrespecting another human being again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think we are prepared to vote. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Johnson, based on the egregious nature of the offenses, a history of violent offenses of a sexual nature, I consider the possibility that you might be a risk to public safety. And if I consider you a risk to public safety, I'm not going to vote to give you a possibility of being released. Also, based on express opposition from the victim's daughter, express opposition from the DA's office, my recommendation is that we deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Johnson, you know, this is a very, very serious nature of offenses. And what strikes me is, like the lady said, that, you know, one victim was 62, one victim was in her 20s. You know, you got problems. You're like an alcoholic. You're gonna never be cured. So what if you get triggered again? And with that fear on my mind, I vote to deny.
Mrs. Jackson?
All right, Mr. Johnson, I concur with my colleagues. My vote is the same for the same reasons.
All right, Mr. Johnson, you've received 3 votes to deny your parole. So today, sir, deny your clemency application. So today, sir, your clemency application has been denied.
Thank you.